Hi, and welcome to my Inspired Human channel. I'm Desiree, and in this video, we are going to talk about the DSM, what it is, and why it's used in therapy. So stay tuned. So first things first, do not use any information found in this video as a substitute to not seek out mental health. If anything, I hope that this video inspires you to actually seek out professional mental health. That way you can get an accurate diagnosis. This information is used for educational purposes only, and please keep that in mind as you continue to watch. So what is this DSM and why is it so thick? So the DSM, that stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And what does that mean? All it means is that this is a big book used for reference for anybody working in social work, psychiatry, counselors, and the alike. And it contains all the mental health disorders. Pretty basic, right? Well, it's really not that simple. It is a little bit more complex than that. What you need to understand is that the DSM is a product of the American Psychological Association. And what that really means is that this book is used in reference and in context to the American healthcare system. So even though it can overlap with, like, say, Canada's healthcare system or mental health system and other mental health systems, this DSM can only be used in reference in America and in the healthcare system. So why is this so important to know? And this is important to know because you have to understand how the American healthcare system works and how we view mental health disorders. So here in America, we love statistics. We love statistics, we love data, and we love cold, hard evidence. What we also love to do is we love to group things together. So what this means is we like to go out and we love to observe and collect all of this data and all of these statistics to kind of understand how people are thinking and behaving, and why are they thinking and why are they behaving in certain different ways. So the APA, or the American Psychological Association, is just a group of mental health professionals and psychiatrists that get together with all of this different data, and they compile it into this big book and say these are kind of mental health disorders because certain people with this certain mental health disorders usually typically act this way, and then this group usually acts this way, and this group of people usually act this way, and such and such and such. Now, this can be a good thing and a bad thing. So it's a really good thing because there are a lot of mental health disorders. I mean, the APA did a really great job in putting everything in this book. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. If you are watching this video, if you are a human, if you are on Earth, you have a mental health disorder. And if you say, no, Desiree, I don't, I'm going to throw some V codes at you. Believe me, you have some kind of mental health disorder according to the DSM. I guarantee that. So we have all of this information, right, in this book. And what it is it is a tool used by mental health professionals to accurately diagnose somebody, but also to kind of get an understanding, a basic understanding of what the client is going through. So here in American society, we like to think that we understand mental health. We understand mental health because we have Google, and we can do a Google search and we can go look in the DSM and find out what kind of mental health disorders there are. This can be a very dangerous move because you are not accurately getting all the information that you think you're getting just by a Google search. What you're not understanding is that this DSM contains everything. So it is very, very broad. So if you have autism, you have a mental health disorder. If you have an intellectual disability disorder or mental retardation, you have a mental health disorder. And yes, if you have PTSD, that is a mental health disorder amongst depression, anxiety, which is so common amongst people nowadays, but also understand sexual disorders too. So if you have erectile dysfunction, that's considered a mental health disorder, and of the alike, right? You could be in a situation where you're even homeless, and that can come in to be like, okay, well, that's a mental health disorder or an adjustment disorder or so forth and so forth. Everything you can think of is contained in this DSM as a mental health disorder because the way that the brain works is very, very complex. So what does this mean to you? This means do not take what you read on Google as absolute. Many other factors are taken into account when accurately diagnosing somebody, such as their past and who they are as a person. That's very important, as well as many other factors. So just because you think that you might have a mental health disorder or you self-diagnosed yourself, understand that that does not affect treatment, prognosis, or outcome if you were to actually go and get therapy. So stop thinking that this DSM is like the Holy Grail or the Bible when it comes to mental health. It is not. As a matter of fact, if you talk to therapists, counselors, social workers, and psychologists and the alike, they're going to tell you that they really don't even like the DSM. And while we really don't like the DSM because it's too black and white, because of the healthcare system, we're subject to categorize people and put them in categories and arrange treatment plans based on their diagnoses. Now, this can be a problem because no two people are alike. And what most people aren't aware of is that some health insurance companies, well, a lot of healthcare insurance companies, are not going to pay for treatment unless a person has a specific diagnosis. And this puts the therapist or mental health professional in a very ethical decision. And you kind of see this about 10 years ago whenever the whole ADHD in children began to become really popularized. Well, certain kids had to be diagnosed with ADHD just to get treatment. So if you brought your kid in that really didn't have ADHD but they needed treatment and you couldn't afford it elsewhere, mental health professionals were telling these insurance companies that this child had ADHD when they really didn't have ADHD, but they needed a certain kind of medication to help their mental health disorder. So what ends up happening is that because a child gets labeled as ADHD as a kid, they have this thinking and they grow up in this healthcare system like they have ADHD. This can pose problems because it's a label, and with labels come stigmas. Stigmas, stigmas, stigmas. I hate stigmas. Please, society, stop with the stigmas. Understand that somebody with BPD or borderline personality disorder is going to be different than somebody else that has BPD, borderline personality disorder, as well as PTSD. Understand that not all traumas lead to PTSD. Understand that PTSD is different from one person to another person. Just because they share the same symptoms doesn't mean they share the same triggers. And this is very, very important because whenever you're assessing someone, you're doing work with somebody, you have to understand the triggers so that way you can get them out of their environment and change their thinking and so forth. So just because somebody has an anxiety disorder just because two people have the same anxiety disorders or the same depression disorders or the same mental health disorders, they are completely different. Their treatment plans are going to be different, their prognosis are going to be different, and the successful outcome of whether or not they overcome this mental health disorder is going to be different because other factors, many other factors, larger factors come into place, such as the client relationship with their therapist, the client's past, the client's goals. All of these things are taken into account when treating somebody in therapy. It is not based on this DSM. This DSM is just for labeling purpose only and pretty much for insurance purposes only. So understand that. And also understand if you do have a mental health disorder, you are somebody with a mental health disorder. You are not your mental health disorder, okay? And also understand that mental health disorders can change. So just because you have social anxiety this year, a couple years from now, you might not even have social anxiety. That's very well possible. But understand, we can't use the word cure. In American healthcare system, we don't use the word cure because it's not possible to say whether or not something is going to come up again. So it's just kind of like in remission. But you could be in remission for the rest of your life. That is possible. Now, I don't want to discourage you from researching mental health disorders. I think if you're researching mental health disorders, that's great. But if you are researching mental health disorders because you want to get an accurate diagnosis of yourself, understand that that might be really, really difficult to do. You're going to have to go seek a professional to get an accurate diagnosis. So keep that in mind. Okay, so look at it this way. Have you ever had some kind of physical symptoms and you just didn't really feel right, but you really didn't know what was kind of going on? So you went on like WebMD or the internet and you started to Google your symptoms. And then when you did that, all of a sudden everything came up, right? Like you're dying, you've got cancer, you've got brain tumors, you've got all of this stuff. So what this does is it provokes a fear in you, and you go and you seek out a doctor or a nurse. And if you go to the doctor and the nurse and you say, "Doctor, nurse, I think I have a brain tumor, I think I have cancer, I Googled all my symptoms, and this is what it is." Well, they're going to take that information, but they're also going to do their own tests, right? They're going to use their own specific system to accurately diagnose and see what's really going on here. And it is no different here than whenever you research for the mental health, okay? So understand that. So for example, a patient that has autism is going to have a different treatment plan than somebody with a sexual disorder. Do you see how these two are different? But because the DSM is so big and it's so broad, we have to first assess the symptoms, right, and ask the person what they're currently feeling to give us a good direction and which way to go. However, the DSM doesn't hold that much weight when compared to the individual person. So the individual person's past, also their symptomology, and again, their goals, and other areas of their life. These hold a lot more weight than just this DSM. So in conclusion, the DSM is a tool and a guide used by mental health professionals to guide them in the right direction whenever treating a client. Remember that you are not your mental health disorders. You are just somebody with a mental health disorder, and this can change. So that's it. If you have a question or a comment, if I left something else, if you want to add to it, make sure you comment down below. Also, like this video, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Oh, and be sure to check out my personal website, DesireeClements.com, where I've got my blog, my poetry, some artwork. It's a really cool place. I say in every video, go there. You won't be disappointed. I guarantee that. And until next time, guys, bye.